Hi, I'm Dawn of the World, and one day I'll be shining a light on things from somewhere that is not a shoebox. Sorry, a matchbox. I mean, in all defense, it's really pretty cozy, isn't it? It's quite an intimate place to get to know each other. This channel has what I would call some very humble beginnings. I'm literally shooting beneath my bed right now. This is a loft bed. I sleep up here, which is where I should be now, but I'm not because I'm recording this video. But if you would like to see the amazing journey of thrills and spills and where this channel would go from here, then I would recommend hitting that subscribe button, and then where the rest of the story goes, we'll wait and see. So today I'm going to be shining a light on the CP0 and what they're currently doing now in the story. Oh yes, if you haven't read up to at least chapter 1031, I would suggest stop watching now because there will be spoilers. This is actually not my first time doing a video on the CP0. I technically did I think it was like it was under 5 minutes, a really short video back in August as kind of a test video for this channel, but that video has now been put on private and no human being is ever going to see it again. What you guys are seeing now is a new and improved video, so let's dive right in. The CP0's presence in Wano has only just been registered by the Straw Hats and allies, that being Robin, Brooke and the Minx, as of chapter 1031, but us readers have been aware of them for some time, I think since Act 2, well before the raid. Their initial reason for being in Wano was to negotiate with Orochi over weapons, likely sea stone, etc, that they had been getting from Wano, but this time they had to make the trek in person since everybody's Joker, aka Doflamingo, is no longer part of the equation. The CP0 have since stuck around in Wano for the week and have been watching the raid, which makes sense because the world government are going to want eyes on a battle of these proportions and are likely going to want to intervene to spin things in their favour when they get the opportunity. So as touched on before, for a while myself and numerous others have more or less been sold on the fact that Brooke will be fighting a CP0 agent. This video will once again be about that, as well as various other potential outcomes of the CP0 now making their move in Onigashima, which is happening. As of chapter 1031, they've officially made themselves known. The reason why I think that Brooke may be getting some upcoming focus is not just because I'm a Brooke simp, and I am a Brooke simp, but just to quickly rehash some of the reasons why some of us have been thinking that Brooke will be getting a fight against the CP0 agents. For one thing, Brooke hasn't really had a proper featured fight yet amongst anyone during the raid on Onigashima, unlike the other Straw Hats. The fact of the matter is that regardless of the outcomes of the other Straw Hat battles, everyone else has had at least a chapter's focus of themselves versus another specific character, be it a member of the Flying Six or a Calamity, whereas Brooke was basically just there for backup during Robin versus Black Maria, which was a fantastic fight where he got just one admittedly badass panel where he took down what was pretty much fodder in comparison to what the rest of the crew have been facing. Brooke has been amazing back up this arc, but a featured battle of himself with another character he has not had. And on the topic of fighting, now that Jinbei has fought Who's Who, Brooke is now the only member of the Straw Hats who has not fought a current or former member of the Cypher Pole. And yes, Robin snapping Spander's spine back at the end of Enies Lobby definitely counts, and it seems as though the opportunity for Brooke to fire one of these CP0 agents could not make itself more plain. Furthermore, Brooke was and still is with Robin, and while I have seen most people saying the fact she'll be pursued was hinted as early as Zol, it was actually implied back in Dressrosa, and then even earlier with her first appearance post time skip that already people were after her. In fact, if you really think about it, she's always been on the run. The only difference is that now she has all of these strong friends who will protect her. Which brings us back to Brooke, who was not yet a part of the crew during Enies Lobby, but being incredibly loyal and individual and protective of his friends as he is, he absolutely would have fought the CP9 had he been among the crew. He's already lost one crew in the past and is absolutely determined not to let that happen again. So combine this with the fact that while Robin seems to have recovered somewhat from her fight with Black Maria, it's unlikely she is at full enough strength to go straight into another full-on battle, especially with opponent as powerful as what the CP0 seemed to be. Now all these thoughts were already bouncing around in all of our heads prior to chapter 1028 when Rob Lucci passed on these two orders to the CP0. One, in the unlikely likely scenario scenario that Kaido is defeated, the CP0 are then to annex Wano country and bring it under the control of the world government. 2. Nico Robin is to be captured. Immediately after this, we cut to just 3 panels of Robin and Brook, in which Robin remarks on Brook's dependability, which from a writer's standpoint is setting him up for some kind of thing. And now, as of chapter 1031, Robin and Brook have finally become aware of the fact the CP0 are present in Onigashima and are after Robin. Oh no. Like, imagine this from Robin and Brook's perspectives. Like, they've got this whole hectic raid going on involving 2 Yonko, and now they have to deal with this on top of all of that. It's a bit of a pain in the... So the stage is set, the CP0 are on the move, this is happening. Something that stood out to me in chapter 1031 was Robin's remark that the masked members of the CP0 are on a whole different class. In my chapter review, I noted that Lucci is in CP0 and yet he doesn't have a mask, to which some people replied that he has a half mask. But the half mask in question, I believe, is from pre-time skip when he was part of the CP9 for one thing, and for another thing, from more of a writer's perspective, what would be the significance of Robin's line of dialogue about the masked members of the CP0 being in a whole other class if Lucci and Kaku were to be also wearing masks? To me, this line of dialogue is Oda's way of confirming to us that these 3 nameless members of the CP0 right here are stronger than Lucci and Kaku, which does make sense given where we're at in the story, even if Lucci and Kaku themselves have grown stronger in the past 2 years. So regarding these masked members of CP0, what are their abilities? Are they fruit users? More Zoan types, perhaps, to thematically fit both the themes of Cypherpole and the Beast Pirates? Or maybe there's something totally different. CP0's presence in Wano country is already so unexpected. Why did I just say that, like, in a sarcastic way? It's genuinely unexpected that the CP0 are in Wano country. Like, they're a real external party that go against the grain, so it would make sense in a sense that if they have some kind of ability that also goes against the grain, and maybe they're not Zoan fruit types, and maybe they don't even have fruits. But it's really hard to say at this point in time, since combat-wise we haven't really seen them do anything. We just have had it inferred that they are very strong and not to be messed with. In a nutshell, these 3 members of the CP0 are not to be slept on. They're not loft beds. I've also seen people point out that these 2 taller ones resemble 2 of the children from Lamb House in Big Mom's flashback, which makes sense as well given Mother Carmel turned out to be trafficking children to the world government, so some of those children may have ended up in Cypherpole. It also makes an interesting kind of full circle here. You know, I love my full circles. Seeing as Big Mom is here as well, and you know, who doesn't love a kindergarten reunion? I mean, I would like to have a stern word with that girl who pushed me out of the window of the cubby house and hurt my feelings. Also, I didn't notice this back when reading the chapter, but in these last panels we see after Brook and Robin have made their temporary escape, the CP0 member here seems to be watching them and has yeeted himself away after them, I presume. It's definitely showing us that he can use Shunpo. Old habits die hard. It's definitely showing us that he can use Soru, which yes comes with the territory of being a Cypherpole agent, but I also find it quite foreboding that Robin and Brook's section has ended with this panel of this particular Cypherpole agent Soruing away. Because in filmmaking, when you end a scene, generally the character who's featured in the last shot is the character who is in power in the scene. It's a bit of a generalization, but it kind of makes me wonder, is that similar with manga and manga paneling? That being said, Oda's choice of ending on the CP0 agent like this is, as I said, kinda foreboding, an omen of what's to come. And what is to come? I mean, CP0's presence has to amount to something. As established, they have their 2 goals, to annex Wano country and to capture Robin. Since their presence needs to amount to something, at least one of these goals needs to be in some way successful. They're not just gonna appear and fail at both of them, unless they do because they suck. The way I see it, it's somewhat likely that they'll succeed at one goal and fail at the other. But who knows? Let's just explore these possible avenues. Suppose they are unable to capture Robin, but in the fatigue-filled fallout of the raid, in which the Straw Hats and allies are victorious but also exhausted, injured and whatnot, this is where the CP0 will step in and annex the country. And in doing so, forcing it to open, which is actually what we want, and also forcing it to become a part of the world government. which is what we don't want. In the event Wano is forced to become a world government aligned country, this could spell disaster for the Kozuki clan, because despite everything they and the Scabbards have been through and fought for up until this point, due to Odin's ties with Roger, they would not only be barred from leading the country, but also be declared criminals on top of that, because the world government hates all things Roger. The heroes, being the Scabbards, would once again become villains, not only in their home country, which they've now saved, only for it to be overtaken again by another enemy, but would also be regarded as such throughout the rest of the world. Each of them could even have a bounty placed on their heads by the government for their ties with Odin, especially Momo and Hyori, since Sins of the Father seems to be a favourite go-to for the world government. Also, their clan has a history of studying the poneglyphs, and if you're the world government, that is a no-no. So instead of taking his father's place as rightful shogun of Wano, Momonosuke and also Hyori would likely have to flee the home they'd been fighting to free for the time being. This actually ties in quite well with the idea of Momo joining the crew as a cabin boy or cabin man. I don't know exactly what will happen in terms of his age, and would also give Robin, should she not be captured, the opportunity to pass on her knowledge of the poneglyphs to someone else. It is traditional for the Kozuki clan to be able to read the poneglyphs, but Momo hasn't learned yet, and at this point Robin is the only person in the world who could teach him, plus it makes a lot of sense for her character arc for her to be able to pass her knowledge on to somebody else. In this case, Wano can only be truly freed, I guess, when Luffy becomes Pirate King and brings about the dawn of the world, which is my name, so you should subscribe. The other option, which I have to say is less likely, but certainly still possible since Oda is all about them curveballs, which is the scenario in which the CP0 don't annex Wano, but they do capture Robin. And I know this isn't a popular idea since it'll feel like a sort of repeat of the CP9 saga, but it is still something that has the potential to happen. Robin will play a vital role in the story's endgame after all. It'll make sense if there's some kind of conflict surrounding her, even if it is just this current kerfuffle and she isn't captured. And of course we need to consider that there are multiple CP0 present, and there is only one Brook, unfortunately. The question now is, would Brook be able to take on one of these guys? We've established that these CP0 members are very strong. Even if Brook could take on one of these guys, he certainly couldn't take on all three. But if he and Robin were to run into Jinbei or Frankie, who seems to be looking for something to do, or even Nami or anyone who could help even out the playing field, their chances of standing their ground against these CP0 will be greater. But until then, things are looking a bit dicey. Also, genuine question to anyone who's still watching this and may be able to enlighten me. Is there any clear reason or purpose as to why the world government wants Robin? Like, I know the enemy pirate crews want her because she's pretty much the key to Laugh Tale. Do the world government want to capture her because they want to prevent people from reaching Laugh Tale? Because in that case, they could just kill her and call it a day. Or do they want her because they want to use her? Because they want to use her to get themselves to Laugh Tale? Or do they want her for another poneglyphy related reason? She's a handy woman, I guess. No one's ever made that joke before. Or is it just the same age-old stock Ennis Lobby reason as before? I ask this because in the scenario they were to capture Robin, where would they take her? I guess my first guess would be Marie-Joie, because wherever they do take her, that would be the next place that the Straw Hats are headed. Guns and gears and beams and swords and legs and plants and all fury blazing. On that note, I've also always wondered if back on the rocky husk of Ohara, there's some secrets left untold that can only be accessed by an archaeologist of Ohara, and if a vital piece of information of some kind lays there, quietly waiting, and whether or not the world government knows of this. But then completely different things could come of CP0's presence as well. For example, since Brook happens to be there on the scene with Robin, maybe the CP0 could know something about his pre-pirate past, which I have done a video on and you should check it out. I've done videos on a few other topics as well while you're at it, if you wanted to check those out. Anyway, I'm fairly certain whatever the outcome of the CP0 in this arc is, it will be vital for the next arc. So let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. I'm Dawn of the World, and I will see you next time. Later, guys.